Hey, my name is Noah Bennett. I'm 31. I work as a structural inspector for the city of Seattle, which means I spend my days finding cracks in things people walk past without thinking twice. Bridges, underpasses, civic staircases, the hidden skeleton of a city that only becomes visible when something breaks. It is not the kind of work that starts conversations at dinner parties. When people ask what I do, I tell them, and they nod the way people nod when they have already stopped listening. I don't blame them. I've learned to carry my work quietly, the way I carry most things. I live alone in apartment 4A on the 4th floor of a mid-rise building on the north side of the city. Small, clean, organized the way spaces get when one person has lived in them long enough to stop pretending anyone else is coming. I have a good coffee maker, a couch that is too large for one person, but I haven't replaced it because replacing it would mean admitting something I am not ready to admit. If you passed me in the hallway, you would probably mistake me for maintenance. 8 months ago, my fiancée Claire sat across from me at our kitchen table on a Sunday morning and told me she loved me, but she wasn't in love with me. That I made her feel safe, but that safe had started to feel like a ceiling. She cried. I didn't. I thanked her for her honesty, helped her carry her boxes to the car, came back upstairs, and sat on the kitchen floor for a long time because the kitchen floor was smaller than the couch, and somehow that made it easier to breathe. I went to work Monday morning, and I kept going. I didn't tell anyone. There was nothing dramatic to tell. The woman I had built 4 years around simply decided that steady wasn't enough, and the silence she left behind moved into my apartment and made itself comfortable. Evelyn Parker moved into 4B 11 months ago. Architect, the kind of woman who designs public spaces meant to bring entire communities together, libraries, civic plazas, pedestrian corridors, and somehow goes home alone every night to the apartment directly next to mine. We introduced ourselves briefly in the elevator her first week. She told me she was an architect. I told her I worked for the city. We smiled politely and went to our separate doors. 2 months later, the elevator broke on a Thursday evening, and I found her in the lobby with 4 heavy bags and a laptop case, staring at the out-of-order sign. I carried her groceries up 4 flights. At her door, she said, "Thank you." Noah, and I noticed it was the first time she had used my name. 3 weeks after that, I found a sticky note on my door. "Sorry for the late conference call last night. They're in Singapore. Different time zone, different volume. 4B, I put it on my refrigerator. I still don't have a good explanation for that. After the groceries and the sticky note, the hallway nods got warmer. Neither of us did anything about it. I told myself it was because we were neighbors and neighbors don't complicate things. But the truth, if I am being honest, is that I wasn't sure a man like me, quiet, invisible, still carrying the weight of being someone's safe ceiling, had any business standing at a door like hers. That Tuesday evening in early November, I left work at 6:15 and drove home through the first real cold of the season. I had no plans. A quiet apartment, leftover soup, and the kind of silence that stops feeling like peace after a certain number of months. Somewhere between parking my truck and reaching the lobby, I decided I didn't want to go upstairs yet. So I walked 4 blocks to Carver's Bistro, sat down at a middle table, ordered the roasted chicken, and tried to remember what it felt like to be somewhere with other people's voices in the background. That is when I saw her. Booth 7, corner window fogged at the edges from the cold outside. Dark sweater, hair down, a glass of red wine sitting warm and untouched in front. Of her. Her phone face up on the table, and that specific contained stillness, the stillness of a woman absorbing a disappointment she was half expecting, the kind that doesn't explode, that just settles quietly into your posture and makes you go very still. My neighbor, the architect from 4B, sitting alone in a restaurant 4 blocks from our building on a Tuesday night, with an empty seat across from her that had been empty for over an hour. Her date never showed up. But what I didn't know yet, what I couldn't have known sitting 6 tables away watching the woman I had never found the courage to speak to beyond a hallway nod, was who Evelyn Parker really was beneath that composed, unreadable exterior. I didn't know what she was carrying. I didn't know what the empty seat across from her was only the beginning of. And I didn't know that the moment she reached for her coat to leave with her dignity intact, and no one in that room acknowledging what it cost her, Something in me was going to stand up and walk across that restaurant and ask a question I had absolutely no business asking. But here's the part that changes everything. When I stood up, crossed 6 tables, stopped at a respectful distance and said, "Can I sit with you?" She looked up, and she recognized me. And what happened in the silence between two neighbors who had spent 11 months separated by nothing but a wall and a hallway, and what Evelyn Parker said next, is the moment that quietly rewrote everything I thought I understood about the woman next door, about what I was worth, and about how sometimes the person you were never looking for has been standing 6 steps from your front door the entire time. I kept my hands visible at my sides. I didn't smile like I was trying to impress her. I just stood there, honest and still, the way you stand when you mean something and you know it. "Excuse me," I said quietly. "I know this is strange, but if you don't want to end the night alone, you're welcome to share my table." She stared at me, not with fear, not with irritation, with the careful, measuring look of a woman who has learned the hard way that people who approach with kindness on their face don't always have it in their hands. And then recognition moved through her eyes like light shifting in a room. "Noah," she said, quietly. "The way you say a name when the person attached to it is the last one you expected to find standing in front of you. Evelyn." A silence opened between us, but it wasn't the uncomfortable kind. It was the kind that happens when two people are both processing something at the same time, and neither of them wants to rush it. "You live in my building," she said. 4 flights, 2 bags of groceries, and 1 broken elevator," I said. Something moved in her face, small and real and completely unplanned. The corner of her mouth lifted, just barely, and for 1 second the composure cracked open and I saw the actual woman underneath it. Not the architect, not the polished professional who designed spaces for other people to feel at home in. Just Evelyn, tired and stood up and trying very hard not to show it. She looked at me for 1 more moment. Then she picked up her wine glass, slid out of booth 7, and followed me back across the restaurant. We sat down across from each other under the low, warm light, and for a moment neither of us said anything. There was something quietly absurd about it. 2 people who had shared a building and a hallway and absolutely nothing else for 11 months, finally sitting down together in a restaurant neither of them had planned to be in. "I didn't know you came here," she said. "I didn't know you did either. I don't usually." She looked at the table. "Tonight was supposed to be different." "You don't have to explain it," I said. She looked up at that, like the words surprised her. "Most people would have asked," she said. "Most people aren't sitting at your table," I said. "I am. That's enough for tonight." Something in her shoulders released, so slowly I almost missed it, the way a building settles after the wind finally stops pushing against it. The server came by. We ordered fresh drinks, red wine for her, black coffee for me, and somewhere in the 30 seconds it took him to walk away, the careful distance between us got smaller without either of us moving. She asked about my day. I could have said fine. I almost said fine. But there was something about the way she asked, direct, no performance, like she actually wanted the answer, that made the truth come out instead. "Spent 6 hours on a pedestrian bridge on the south side," I said. "Hairline fractures in 2 support joints, nothing catastrophic yet." "But enough?" "Yet," she repeated. "Yet," I said. "That's most of what I do. Finding the yet before it becomes something worse." She was quiet for a moment. Then she said something I didn't expect. "I do the same thing," she said. "Except I build the spaces first and then spend years worrying about the cracks I might have missed." I looked at her then. Really looked. And I saw something I hadn't expected to find. Not just a woman who had been stood up on a Tuesday evening, but a woman who carried the weight of her work the same way I carried mine. Quietly, constantly, without anyone noticing. "That sounds lonely," I said. She didn't answer right away. She turned her wine glass slowly in her hand and looked at the fogged window and the cold, dark street beyond it. "It is," she said finally. "But I got so used to it that I stopped calling it lonely. I just called it focused." I understood that completely. I'd been calling my own silence by a different name for 8 months. We talked more after that. Small things first, the way the city changes when November arrives, the particular smell of Carver's on a cold night, garlic and wood smoke, and something sweet from the kitchen. Safe topics, easy ones. But safe topics have a short shelf life when two people are actually paying attention to each other. She asked if I was seeing anyone. I told her the truth, that I had been engaged until 8 months ago, that Claire left because steady wasn't enough, that I hadn't really been looking for anyone since because I wasn't sure what I had to offer had changed. Evelyn was quiet for a moment. She was wrong, she said. Simply. No drama in it. Just a statement she appeared to have decided was fact. You don't know that, I said. You barely know me. I know that a man who notices a stranger sitting alone across a restaurant and walks over just so she doesn't have to leave with nobody acknowledging what it cost her. She paused. That's not a man who doesn't have enough to offer. That's a man who has more than most. The words landed somewhere deep and stayed there. I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything, and she didn't push. She just picked up her wine and let the moment be what it was. Outside, the first snow of November had started falling. Not heavy, just a quiet suggestion of winter, small flakes drifting past the fogged window, melting the second they touched the wet street. Inside, the restaurant had gotten quieter around us, other tables emptying, the low music clearer now, the amber light warmer. And then her phone lit up. She glanced at the screen. Something moved across her face, quick, controlled, but I caught it. The name on the screen was the man who had never shown up. She stared at it for 3 full seconds. Then she looked up at me. And what I saw in her eyes in that moment, the decision forming, the choice being made in real time, was something I was not prepared for. What Evelyn Parker did next, and what it quietly revealed about who she really was beneath everything she had built around herself, is the moment I knew with absolute certainty that this was not just a neighbor I had shared a building with for 11 months. This was someone I had been one wall away from the entire time, and I had almost let her walk out of booth 7 without saying a single word. She let it ring, not with hesitation, with decision. The kind that has already been made before the hand even moves. She turned the phone face down on the table, picked up her wine, and looked at me like nothing had happened. But her hand was not completely steady when she set the glass back down. "You okay?" I asked. "Getting there," she said. We sat in that quiet for a while. The snow outside had thickened slightly. The last few tables around us were emptying. Carver's was becoming just us and the low music and the amber light and the particular intimacy that settles over a room when most of the world has gone home. Then she said something that changed the temperature of the entire evening. "I got offered a fellowship last week," she said. "Copenhagen, 18 months, designing a civic waterfront district from the ground up." She paused. "It's the kind of offer you wait your whole career for." I looked at her. "But," she traced the rim of her glass, "but nothing. I should take it. My partner thinks I should take it. Everyone who knows anything about my field thinks I should take it. What do you think?" She was quiet for a long moment. "I think I'm sitting in a restaurant 4 blocks from my apartment on a Tuesday night, having the first real conversation I've had in months," she said, "and I don't know what to do with that." The words sat between us like something fragile. I didn't push. I didn't tell her what to do. I just said the only honest thing I had. Wherever you design it, the space you build will have people sitting in it having conversations that matter to them. That's not nothing, Evelyn. She looked at me for a long moment. Something in her expression shifted, not dramatically, not theatrically, just the small, specific shift of a person hearing something they needed to hear from someone they didn't expect to trust yet. We walked home together that night. 4 blocks in the quiet snow, shoulders close but not touching, the city muffled and soft around us. At the lobby door, she stopped and turned. "Thank you, Noah," she said, "for crossing the restaurant." "Thank you for not leaving before I did," I said. She smiled, small and real and completely unguarded. Then she went inside. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment after the door closed, snow falling on my shoulders, the city completely still. I told myself it was just one evening, 2 neighbors who happened to be in the same place at the same time. Nothing more complicated than that. But when I got upstairs and passed her door in the hallway and saw the light already on beneath it, I felt something I hadn't felt in 8 months, like a circuit quietly closing. 2 days later, everything cracked open. 2 days later, I found the message. Claire's name on my screen. 7 words. I think I made a mistake. Call me. I stared at it for a long time. Standing in my kitchen, still in my work boots, the city noise coming through the window, everything else completely still. 8 months of silence, 8 months of learning how to breathe inside the space she left. And now, 7 words trying to walk back through a door I had quietly, painfully learned to close. I set the phone down. I didn't call back, but I didn't delete it either. That's the thing about old wounds. They don't announce themselves. They wait until something new and real starts forming. And then they whisper. Are you sure? Are you really sure this time? I didn't see Evelyn for 3 days after Carver's. Our schedules missed each other. The hallway was quiet. The light under her door was on late both nights. I noticed without meaning to. On the 4th morning, I was leaving early for a site visit, and she was coming in late from what looked like a sleepless night, blueprints tucked under her arm, coffee in hand, hair pulled back low. She stopped when she saw me. Hey, she said, hey. A beat. The hallway between 4A and 4B felt smaller than it ever had. I submitted the deferral last night, she said quietly. 1 cycle. 18 months from now instead of now. I looked at her. Evelyn, don't, she said gently. It wasn't because of you. It was because of me. Because I realized I've spent 10 years building spaces for other people to feel something in, and I haven't let myself feel anything real in longer than I can remember. She paused. And then a city inspector crossed 6 tables on a Tuesday night, and I thought, maybe not yet. Maybe there's something here worth staying for first. I didn't have a speech prepared. I never do. I just stepped forward and took her hand, right there in the hallway between our 2 doors. No grand gesture, no fireworks, just my hand around hers and the quiet understanding that sometimes the most important distance you ever close is the one you've been standing at for months pretending it wasn't there. She looked down at our hands, then up at me. You're not going to say something quiet and steady and impossibly right, are you? She said. Probably, I said. She laughed, soft and real and completely unguarded. We stood there a long time, the hallway light humming above us, the city going about its morning outside, and the wall between 4A and 4B meaning absolutely nothing anymore. Some cracks, I was learning, aren't warnings. Some cracks are just the moment the light finally finds a way in. If this story moved something in you, if you have ever been the person sitting alone waiting for someone who never showed, or the person who almost didn't cross the room, subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story like this one. And before you go, I want to ask you something real. Is there someone in your life right now, someone close enough to hear through the wall that you have been too afraid to cross the room for? Think about that. Because sometimes the person you have been waiting for isn't somewhere out there. Sometimes they are standing 6 steps from your front door.